I'm back, everybody. Episode 11. Sorry I missed last week. Had some last minute stuff come up, and I know I said that episode number 11 was going to be a solo podcast. I'm going to roll that forward a week. That's going to be episode number 12. I got the chance, if you listen to episode number 10, was me sitting down with John Dudley, an archery Jedi. Well, I got the chance to do my first bow hunting trip with him in Alberta. So instead of doing a podcast last week, I was trying to be a ninja in the bushes, crawling around, trying to shoot at things with full metal jacket darts. And it was amazing. I've learned an unbelievable amount. And we sat down at the end of that trip and did a podcast, kind of covered what had happened during the week. Yeah, whew, man, what a mind-blowing experience. So if anybody, if you don't dig hunting or if you're not into hunting at all, maybe skip this one. If you do dig hunting or you're just getting into hunting like I am, like I've said many times, my experience in the pool of the bow hunting world is incredibly thin. I have almost no time there. I think I actually at this point have a total of 7 days under my belt. But I definitely covered some stuff that I had learned, some of the expectations that I had going into it and what they ended up being in reality and real life. So if you're anywhere in the same orbit that I am with your desire to get into the hunting world, hopefully you can glean something from my time spent up there, literally following a master around in the woods. And next week we'll follow this up with some questions from the internet. I got probably 30 to probably double that actually, somewhere around 60 good questions from people. I'll try to dig into as many as I can. But until then, enjoy episode number 11, podcast from the road in Alberta. Oh, and one other thing. This is the first time I've ever tried to do one outside, so you might pick up a little bit of odd noise. There's some birds in the background. There's some wind, but it was too amazing of a setting to go sit indoors and do it. So I hope you enjoy episode number 11. Here you go.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Oh, we're going.
It's so rude. Everyone's going to be like, this is...
Disclaimer
bullshit.
up front, we're sitting down finally eating some stuff that we actually just brought back from the Alberta backcountry-ish.
Yeah.
So apologies for hearing the...
Knocked a fork, dude.
Yes.
This is you. I'm literally enjoying your harvest right now. And it's ridiculous.
It's good. My feet hurt.
Are you complaining?
No, it's just making
Good.
a statement.
Yeah, because you should have been here twice as long.
I wish
I
could.
forgive you.
Yeah,
for sure.
Next year, right? Because this trip was just a scouting trip for future trips, so it's going to be okay.
Yeah, this was your recon now, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
This
So
is a done deal.
we're up in Alberta. We're pretty far north, too, right?
Oh, yeah. Way
Near-
far north. Just south of the Peace River area.
Yeah, near Valley View, I think was probably the biggest town that you would recognize. But yeah, this trip actually wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't moved to Montana and been able to throw the stuff in the truck and just get in the car. And
That was awesome.
yeah, I think we put this.
I wouldn't call it a car.
Yeah.
But it's a jet.
I think we put this thing together. What, 6 days ago? Something like that. 7
Yeah.
days ago. 3 or 4 days before I showed up.
That's how the best hunts all happen.
Yeah, what an experience, man. I'm gonna have to sit down like when I get home and write down like all the stuff that I learned so I don't forget it. In the 3 days I have off before.
Good luck with that.
In the 3 days that I have off before the Montana elk season opens, because I'm coming straight from this back to Montana. My family, my dad and my uncle are actually got on the road at 4:30 this morning, starting their drive from Santa Cruz, California.
Are you going to be like the veteran? You're going to be the veteran.
I
hunter?
am.
You're going to be like, listen.
Like, we have to hunt with the wind at our back at all times.
No, tell them they have to. I'm going this way. You guys just put the wind at your back.
Yeah, Dudley said low ground and go into the middle of a field and just stand there. That's where you'll find the elk.
So not true.
It's going to be way different, though, because the terrain... I live in an area surrounded by mountains, but I would call the area we're going to be hunting not mountainous. Like, there's some elevation gain, but it's not. You're not talking 45 degrees. That's over off to the eastern side where we didn't get that draw.
Oh. So you're more in the plains, kind of. Just you got rolling hills, maybe.
Yeah, I would say rolling hills.
Contour.
Yeah, probably total gain. Maybe from the house we're staying at to hunt, maybe 2,000 feet.
That could really play in your favor, especially with how you're shooting.
Yeah, it's the terrain's way different though. Like it's not. I've actually walked around quite a bit up at that house. It's not like this. It's much more like I would say pine tree-y. Like pine tree stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of deadfall.
Mm-hmm.
But not this type of. I'm sure there's stuff out there with thorns because there's stuff with thorns.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere, but not like the thistle stuff. None of the fields like the
that
canola.
Tail.
Yeah, none of that stuff. So.
Well, if you take a prickly pear to the sack on the stalk, believe me, it's just as worse.
I think the stalk might be over at that point.
No. Not if there's something in front of you that you got your target on. You'll do it. I know you will.
So how long have you been coming up here? Because this place is a hidden gem for sure.
10 years. 10 years, I guess. And we are eating our first like real sit down breakfast because you have to leave in a little bit.
Yeah.
And
it's lunchtime.
Our new homeboy I met him on Instagram. Meet, Pray, Love is just an amazing cooker of wild game. So
Prey, Prey though, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he whipped up. What do we have here? We've got some duck bacon. Here, I'll slide the mic over. You say it.
Yes, please.
Well, I made some Saskatoon berry and black bear bacon bratwurst.
I think I would eat anything that had the word Saskatoon attached to it. Like you could put that, just sprinkle it on top of roadkill, and I might take a bite of that bad boy.
It's amazing. They grow all around here, and I guess Taylor and his family kind of pick them.
Oh yeah, they get all over anything that naturally grows. They're conservationists, man. I don't think I'd try that on like a wolf turd though.
It goes so well with bear meat, like because that's what they're eating, right? I'm a big fan of cooking wild game and stuff that it eats, like rabbit. You go for leeks and carrots, braise it in that. And you're
self-taught too, right? Like your traditional training.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we could go farther deep into your background and tattoo stories, but
I'm a nutritionist.
Yeah.
A butcher, which I went to training for, and then the culinary game. I worked in a couple pubs and stuff like that, but that's just like flipping burgers, man. So everything else is just self-taught, and I wanted to start hunting so I could cook my own game meat. Like I want to go deep as I can on the food chain.
What got you into the desire to have? Because don't get me wrong, I absolutely love where your head's at and the desire to do that. But what got you interested in harvesting the meat yourself, as opposed to obviously the very conventional and very convenient way of just going to a grocery store?
I feel like humanity is so separated from meat that they don't appreciate where it comes from. I think that meat it's awesome, but I think that the meat worship thing with the whole like barbecue world and all that kind of stuff, it's a little played out. I mean, you have big factory farming and stuff like that going on, and it doesn't. Have you ever had like one of those steaks as opposed to like a grass-fed, grass-finished steak? It's night and day. Yeah. So
even before you cook it, you can tell the difference.
Yeah, you can
marbling
tell
and the color and all that stuff.
All that kind of stuff. The conventionally raised, pasture-fed bucket of corn around its neck. It's not cool to see. Like when I was going to butcher school, they made us go to the kill floor, and I was like, and witness the slaughter of animals on a mass production scale, and that's where it really clicked for me. And
No, you're good. I'm just moving it down so it's easier.
I grew up fly fishing and all that kind of stuff. And when I married my wife, her dad is an avid hunter. He was the head of the Fish and Game Association in Calgary for many years. And it just kind of got ingrained in me and more and more and more. And I got more passionate about food. And with that, I got more passionate about how I got my food. And I just wanted to make it, I wanted to do it myself, because I feel like, I mean, if you're going to eat something that was living, you should do it yourself, or at least go out of your way to get ethically raised meat. Like farmed meat. Shake your farmer's hand if you're eating farmed meat.
Yeah.
Don't just go to the grocery store and be like, oh, the manager's special. That's the fucking rotten meat that they're trying to clear. If it's 25% off or whatever.
No, it's special.
And it's special, all right.
Why did they make you guys go to the killing floor?
Just to see if you could hack it, kind of like, and a lot of guys, if you don't end up in a boutique shop like I did, there's that route to go.
What do you mean boutique butcher shop?
Well, I work in a boutique butcher shop where it's really high end. Everything is naturally raised, like it's all pasture raised, grass fed. In Alberta, it's really rare to get 100% grass finished beef.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it, but like a lot of people look at it in the case and they're like, oh, it's lean, the fat's yellow, I'm not gonna buy that. So they want to turn the fat white. So they put it on a 3% barley ratio in the finishing feed, where the rest is hay and legumes at my shop anyway. So it's still like grass finished as much as we can do it, but it just turns the fat white. It's unbelievable, like the difference. And that's like the kind of place I work at. It's really high end. Everything's like, we sell rabbit, we sell pheasant, we sell like sweetbreads, high end shit. Right?
Sweetbreads is brains, right?
No, sweetbreads is thymus gland and pancreas of the veal. And the smaller or the larger the steer gets, the smaller the glands get.
I would not eat that with Saskatoon berry. I
No.
think you found the one thing that
You
I
want
would
to do that with lemon and tarragon.
No, I'm gonna take a hard pass on that. I will not be eating that.
Oh, it's amazing.
So so audio only format. We got to go backwards a little bit because I was talking to you yesterday about the butcher stuff because I didn't realize you went to a 10-month course to become a butcher. Was that like a full-time 10-month?
Well,
Or
I
is
was
it like
also
a-
I was also in a band at the time, and I kind of half-assed it the whole time. And then as
The
soon as
band
I
or
got
the
in,
bu-
as
the
soon as
band
I
or the
got-
butchering?
the butchering, because it was just kind of one of those things. Like it was like a kind of getting a trade to fall back on. I was going into broadcasting, and I wasn't that interested in it, but it turned out to be one of the most used skills I have today. Like shopping for meat, even when I'm now a butcher, but even then, like I can break down animals now on a mass scale. Like that bear that you got, John's muley. We're gonna break all that down because
Let's
can fall
talk about
back
that
on my
bear,
butcher trade.
because after a few of those links, I need to know your address to come pick up that thing because I never had a bite of bear before in my life. That was unbelievably good.
We just look at it like pork. Basically, every bear recipe through history has been derived from a pork recipe. Like when you see a bear, a boy is a boar,
Right.
and a female is a sow.
Oh, I
And when
actually
you
didn't
look at
put two and two together.
pork, it's boar and a sow. The same thing, same anatomy,
Yeah.
same fat content. So you just look at it like that, and it's just more red pork.
And it will climb trees and eat you also.
Yeah.
But I don't think a pig can do that.
Well, the wild ones will just stab you with their tusks.
Yeah. But they don't stand up on their hind legs and make you go, oh, goddamn,
God damn.
it's looking at me. So have you hunted yet?
Up here this season, no.
Okay. You've been a hunter for a while though, right?
Yes, I have.
You swapping over to bow at some point?
That's the goal. That's why I'm here.
This is where Mr. Dudley steps in.
Mm-hmm.
Any tips, Dud?
What kind of tips?
I'll say, because I'm an expert now. I have 4.5 days of bow hunting under my belt, so I think I've seen it all, a few times. No, you know what I was
You've actually seen a tremendous amount.
we had a crazy amount of interaction with a variety of different animals.
Totally wild game.
Yeah.
Spot and stalk is true to the I guess the discipline of being a bow hunter. It's as true as you could ever get. But you do have a horseshoe up your ass because first day we saw a bear, giant whitetail, 2 moose, and this is all just still hunting.
Yep.
We were still hunting for elk. Didn't hear elk because, I mean, elk are very elusive. They cover a lot of ground, as did we have to get the opportunities we had. But then more bears. Then you had a dang grizz encounter, which was amazing. What were we, 40 yards from a grizz? Actually stalked a grizz because at the time we thought it might have been just a color phase bear.
Yeah.
And then we stalked in, and then once we stalked in and it stood up, I realized.
I remember you're like, oh, that's a grizz. I think I took a few steps backward at that point.
I think you said, do we throw a rock at it? And I just looked at you and I mouthed, no.
Well, we wanted to get past it to go for the elk. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't go past it. I know you're used to having to just avoid hazard, like find alternate B, but alternate B was there's about 200 miles of more river bottom we could go walk.
I don't want to mess with a grizzly bear at all.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw a crazy amount. I was thinking on the drive back, because I knew we were going to sit down and podcast. I think the one thing I would say to somebody bow hunting, like getting new into it, is expectation management. I mean, I've been with people rifle hunting, and it's like, all right, turn the corn feeder on. Here they come. It's quick,
Yeah.
and the couple times that I've, actually I should say the one time I went to, a high fence deer blind down in Texas, which I know is pretty standard down in that area a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They're not even hunting in the middle of the day. It's really, they try to get out there first light or before first light. Corn feeder comes on, shoot or don't.
Yep.
Go take a nap for the rest of the day, drive around, maybe look for some hogs or some javelina, and they're back in the blind. That was the exact opposite experience of what we had up here. I mean,
What's your watch say? Did you add it up? What did we do?
we're at like 10.
Judging by the size of the blister in the back of your heel.
It's a big one. Oh, I'm not done with this yet.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to be done. If there's any leftover sausage links, I'm taking one.
I literally just had my phone and put it somewhere.
You did.
Well, I mean, I know we did 13 yesterday, 13 miles. Well, but, I mean, to give some context to that, we've been going to bed at probably after 11, before midnight.
It's been after midnight every night.
Yeah. And
Right at midnight.
Yeah. Up at 4 to between 4:30, breakfast, 3 to 4 PB&Js in the backpack.
I told you those are a staple, man.
3 to 4 bottles of water. And, I mean, the last 3 days, we're getting out of the vehicle, totally dark, getting set up, and had some, again, expectation management. I had totally different. The one day I went out with Jordan and he did that one bugle, and I looked over, like there's a massive elk coming in this direction. One bugle, and that's for saw him, moved over into the bushes, and 30 seconds later he's busting out, going directly at Jordan, who had the call. That's the only time that I saw that happen on the trip. And then the other mornings are like last night. You bugle. We went to the same field where that occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Bugled. The cow calls, nothing.
Yep.
So
Ghost town.
Yeah. I mean, so
They can be 20 miles somewhere else, right? That's why we're covering so many miles to try to get that report. And a lot of times, I think the most valuable thing you came away with was the fact that we called a lot of bulls.
Oh, yeah.
But just getting the understanding of how cunning they are, and you could tell probably when one would respond, I would know he was in a position that was favorable to him. And I was like, okay, at this point, it's a long shot. And that bull's still 300-400 yards away.
Yeah.
But just judging on wind direction, terrain, just our ability to reposition within a short amount of time, especially when he calls back and he's closer already, we know he's committed. So, yeah, I was curious how much of what you saw, because you got to witness my stalk on my muley.
Yes.
Which was actually 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days. And, that was one thing, if he was still sitting here, is bow hunters, the patience is, they understand that you need patience. But there's another level to that if you really want to be, I guess, successful on a higher level. Because 2 different days I made good stalks on that muley and got within my bow range, but one time my shot opportunity at the vitals wasn't absolute. The next time I went out there and the wind was at a higher rate than what I felt comfortable taking the same shot with. So I ended up having to, which is almost more important, reverse stalk and get out away from that deer without him knowing that I was there, so that I can have that opportunity again, which is pretty much what happened. And luckily you guys were able to come and
Yeah, it was awesome.
watch that go down.
You were facing us from a couple hundred yards away. The muley was in between the two of us. I watched you. I was basically right on line with you stalking.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But I think the patience thing again falls into the expectation management, because you could have pushed that both of those days. You could have.
Oh yeah.
And then who knows what would have happened. But instead, you expected that you might have to, take 6 hours and not get anything out of it, instead of, trying to push something that didn't look great. We call it tactical patience in my old career, and you don't learn that until you have some experience and you see pushing things and then it goes wrong, and then you find yourself in a really bad situation. You have to work your way out of it again. But another lesson I definitely picked up on, because you said it a few times, was educating the animals. Even if
because that's what I was getting ready to say too. When you were talking, I was thinking, for the when you find a really good animal, or one that you're wanting to take, and the position's right, and that you have the ability to strike there. There might just be one or two pieces of the puzzle that aren't aligned. Once you have the radar up, that's no longer an opportunity, right? So, now all the recon that you've put into identifying the target's no longer there. And pressure is the name of the game, I think, with anything. If you're doing anything where you're trying to have a element of surprise, the pressure has to be so minimal that there's not even a single hair raised. Otherwise, these things are living every day thinking they're going to get attacked by something.
The instincts on the animals, it was surprising. Like, I didn't realize that the elk, their first move is to circle downwind. That's a varsity move if you want to sustain your life, instead of just barrel-assing right in. I'm sure the ones that did that are gone.
Yeah.
And are getting eaten. But for an animal that, I would have to assume that we have a higher cognitive level or a thought process, and you can put more thought. It makes sense. But just to have that as your baseline instinct for survival. We had today, who knows what was behind those bushes, but if I had heard it crack one more time, I was going to draw back and just wait. Because, it had to have been just around the corner. And then yesterday, when you made that bugle, and we did a quick high five and started running, because there was a bull exactly where you thought it was going to be.
Yep.
And he was coming and caught the wind, and bugling and closer, and to the point where I'm like, I don't understand how I can't see this thing. It's so loud.
Yeah.
And then quiet. Wouldn't answer, backed its way out, lived to be a bull another day. That was, I've seen human beings that don't have instincts like that. Let's put it like that.
Oh yeah. Most of them don't. We rely so heavily just on what we see, and then obviously now we rely so much on probably what we could Google. I think if it did come down to us having to survive, we'd be incredibly, we would be weaklings. Like, if it came down to true survival of the human race, so many people have gone away from like predatory instincts, right? Just people's ability to walk quiet. People's ability to actually be patient, watch their surroundings, understand what's going on everywhere except just what they look at. Those animals are coming in, and every animal has something that is probably more advantageous than the next. With elk, it's certainly 2 nostrils the size of a Coke can, So they're sucking in air trying to smell, and then, if they can't do that, their second sense is going to be, sight, and then obviously hearing will come in right after that. So, I think we're really opposite. We don't really function that way. And
it would be a precipitous drop off for a while until people started learning again. It would be, some people would be fine. And the vast majority, I think it would just be a trapdoor opening. If you actually had to provide for yourself and survive, people would be done.
I remember when I taught my boy how to bow hunt, and I would always take my boy and my wife on all my hunts. until Harry got into sports. And I was
So like by that you mean they were like be walking like you and I were, like they're out there,
100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Well, like I told you, when I shot that mule deer, we were out there in all those little like I don't know if they're gnats or what they are in the canola, but it's like this little.
Let's just say there was a lot of them.
Yeah, there's tons. And one time I was on a stalk with Sharon. It was the first time her and I had ever done a muley stalk. We stalked out in that canola, which is a jungle, a jungle on the ground. And we crawled up to a buck, and we laid there the entire day just wiping. You can literally wipe your eyes enough to where they weren't in your eyes, but your whole body was just moving. And, I mean, it wasn't fun, but, she totally knew that that's what you have to do to, for at least for this activity, that's part of it. But I remember teaching Harry how to stalk. He was really young. He was probably, I don't know, he was probably 10 or 11. And just because I was taught this way, just the way that I walk and the way that I choose things, like if I break a stick, it makes my hair stand up.
Yep.
And I remember that after a year or 2 years of having Harry hunt with me, I remember once he was leading. We were stalking this. I forgot what we were stalking, but we were stalking something. He was leading. And keep in mind, he's like 11. I think he was 11. And I like stepped on this little twig and snapped it, and he just stops, and I just see his head go.
Awesome.
It just shakes his head, doesn't even look back at me, and I was just like, "Oh, sorry."
He's just too disgusted to even
Yeah,
look back.
he
You're like,
was.
God, I thought you knew better. That's something by someone. I mean, next year, my boys are hitting the Montana season with me for sure. Like, I just wanted to put the video game down and pick up something that's more real. And
Yeah.
I think you learn a lot by being outdoors. I mean, for me, like we were busting our ass for the last 4 days, but I'm having the absolute time of my life. I mean, how much did we laugh?
Oh my gosh.
We laughed our asses off and would look left and like, oh, hi, animal. Right? You think you're totally busted and look left. It's like, oh, we should be quiet again.
It always happens that way. As soon as you let your guard down, that's the one time. That's what gets tough is you're out there and you do 11 miles. You only hear one call back in the first part of the morning, and we just kept pushing and pushing. Next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock at night, and it's like, okay, we're not going to see anything. And it's that one time where it's the one time you set your bow down and go over without your bow in your hand, that something pops out and you're looking over at your bow. And, I mean, so many times that stuff happens. But I'm just happy that you're getting to feel a rush. Like it's a whole different, and the fact that now you're getting to consume this. I mean, your appreciation of probably what you eat and what's on your plate, even though I know that you were appreciative of things that you ate and you ate clean before, but I think it's definitely going to go to a whole new level now.
I mean, there's something, like every bite you can think back about. I mean, that was an adventure yesterday.
Oh, man.
I mean, it that could have turned into a rodeo, and it didn't. And you sit back, and I'm sitting there looking at you and Jordan. I'm like, I don't know much about bears. If you guys say we need to get out of here, obviously I'm going to trip Jordan. John, you and I are going to run.
Well, there was already another bear. You made a good shot. We were actually elk hunting in the evening, stalking, and something caught my eye, and I look, and here's this massive boar just like waddling down this trail right at us.
Yeah, just dum-da-dum.
And I just said, load up, pull back.
Basically.
And he pretty much came in eye level, and I just said, put it right in the center of the chest. And you sent one of those blue knocks right there. Yeah. And that thing ran off, and we kind of gave it some time, that's a really important thing for any hunter, especially bow hunter, is if you're ever in doubt, if you don't see it go down, if you don't hear it go down, if you have any doubt of where, if you couldn't see your arrow and where did I hit it, just always give it time, because you don't know. And if you bump it once it's trying to expire for the first time, then you just blast them full of adrenaline, and then they're
up and running again.
Yeah. So we gave yours some time, had some coffee. We got to talk about that, but had some coffee, and then by the time we went after that thing, we were following the blood, and all of a sudden that big bear just stood up right in front of me, and I was thinking, oh no, it's not down. But it was another bear.
And to paint the picture, it's not like we're walking on a trail. We were in, like, shoulder to chest high bushes, thorny, like we're following a blood trail, and all of a sudden Godzilla stands up. Like,
and starts huffing, posturing, and we're
Yeah.
thinking, okay, well, it's an injured bear. Maybe the shot wasn't as good as we thought. So we kind of backed up again. Meanwhile, that bear didn't really want to leave. And at that point, I said, none of this is really making sense. Like,
Yeah. We had a conversation, like, how many have we seen? What's going on?
Yeah, what is happening? So then I just said, okay, you guys watch. I'm going to crawl through this junk and see if I can. And literally crawled in, and all of a sudden I'm on top of your bear. and I didn't know if it was the one that stood up and looked at me or what, but that bear was about to eat yours. Literally followed. Somehow that bear had picked up that blood trail, and there was another bear equal and maybe even bigger. It was hard to tell. I mean, it was
not tiny.
It was 7.5 feet standing on its back legs, and it was literally over your bear that was expired on the ground. And you're like, why would it do that? Me and Jordan looked at it. We're like, thing needs to go into hibernation. It's easy calories. That thing is going to consume.
That blew my mind that that would happen that fast, because the break that we took, I mean, it's not like we're talking 8 hours, No,
it probably took about 40 minutes. Just to make sure, because we didn't see it go down. And
I mean, it's the outdoors is savage. It
is. It's totally savage.
Food is food. And I was like, okay, he's going to eat his buddy. It's probably Bob and Frank, and like, hey, Bob, I got to go to bed soon, so I'm going to eat you.
Yeah, it's been real.
Oh, man, unbelievable. What surprised me the most, I think, was I'm amazed at how successful you are by yourself hunting, because, I mean, let's be honest. I had, you up front totally helping me along the way, right? Like, places to go, things to think about, shooting lanes, positions, all that stuff, and calling.
And teaching you sign, observation of
track, the sign. And I wasn't even looking at some of the stuff. And you're like, you didn't see all the sign? I'm like, no, I was looking at your feet. I was following your trail, trying not to make any twigs go snap. And and you look up And then there was Jordan, too, who could also help, right? So I'm kind of like in the middle of the delicious section of the Oreo, you guys on each side. And you guys are both working, and I'm carrying my bow. But to be out there by yourself, like the one shot I did have on the elk, the speed at which it went from we're just, kind of walking along, we're going to bugle and see what happens, to in a bush, coming back on draw, which with, so go back to like the precision rifle stuff. Like when I would know the exact yardage every time before I took a shot, because there's no error. And I was lasing this thing as it was coming in, and at some point I had to put that down because I knew it was going to get to a place where, because Jordan was off, so I knew it was going to get to a place where at some point it's going to bolt. It's going to realize it's not him. So, okay, there's my last lace. Try to spin my wheel really fast, draw and get set. Take the shot. I'm like, as that thing broke, I was like, yes. And then
the ninja skills.
It jumps. It hits him right in the butt. But he ran off 40 yards and then stopped. So I re-knocked another one and tried to go around the side. And every time I actually drew back a second time, and he would move, and I'd let it down.
Yeah.
And try to go around again. And he just. And that's why I started texting you. I'm like, and you're like, hey, don't pressure him. So I backed off, watched where he went in. We went and looked for him, but the speed, so Jordan was there to help me with that. I like the ability to, if you're by yourself, to make that call, then to find a position, then he's coming in, and you're still going to have to make more calls, I'm assuming, to bring him in. So then he's looking straight at you, because when I drew back, he was not looking at me.
Right.
He was looking to where Jordan was. So, I mean, it went from really like, hey, we're traipsing around on this road, to, oh, goddamn.
It was game time, and game time's done.
Literally looked over, and there's just this huge rack coming through, and a couple hundred yards away. And the next time I looked, he's breaking out of the I don't know what the crop was, one of the hays or the canola, super fast.
Yep.
I mean, I can only imagine if you were a first-time bow hunter out there by yourself, for one, to even get the bull to come with you because you're probably still learning the calls. But you'd get task saturated and overwhelmed really fast, which I can only imagine just your effective range just gets microscopic. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, that I felt comfortable at that range. I felt like I had a good break, and it's like, oh, come on.
Well, yeah, that's the one variable that there's really no answer for is, the bears that you shot, neither one of them reacted to the, like the sound of the bow.
Not at all.
The elk actually never even knew you were there, which is normally in your favor. And the fact that it stopped, you got a good range, you pulled back, made a good shot. But that thing, I think because it was so focused on where the sound of the call was, I think you almost startled it because all of a sudden it had no idea, and it's in the open, it's exposed. So, I mean, his senses are high. And as soon as your bow went off, he was like almost just like flinching as if someone, if you come around the corner in a closet and someone's like, hey, that's pretty much what he did. And
he didn't move much. That's all it needed.
Well, what happens is animals, all they have to, their reaction, just like when if someone comes up behind you and spooks you, you pretty much shrug up, right? Yeah. So with an animal, because they're on 4 legs, when they get spooked, they pull their legs up, so the gravity of their body drops them. So when that thing was, you had a good angle, he was quartering away.
Yep.
So by the time he's naturally dropping, he just was dropping and turning, and
that's why it hit high right, yeah.
But the good thing is, Taylor saw which is last night why we went back to that same spot from 4 days ago, is because Taylor saw the bull out there bugling and doing his whole thing. Luckily where your arrow hit, it just, it hit and then came out.
Doink, bounced off. We found the arrow 5 feet from where it hit him.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, that's...
with a couple inches of penetration, so it basically bounced off of probably his hip bone or something.
Yeah, he's been speared a lot harder by horns than what that did. Which is the best case scenario for you, because I mean, that's the one thing that'll turn your gut as a bow hunter. People that tell me, oh, I've never lost an animal or I've never missed an animal, I just feel like it's because you haven't experienced it enough, because there's variables that you don't have control over. There's factors. If you hit, if you're out there like in that canola, there's a possibility. I mean, one little pea pod could have been sticking up to where it hits the back of your arrow deflects.
Yeah.
I mean, there's variables like that with any type of hunting, or especially even you like shooting at certain targets at longer distances. There's variables that sometimes you can't factor.
Gust of wind and you're done.
Right. So if you make a bad hit and you don't recover the animal, that's the worst. That's the worst you can get for a bow hunter, because
it actually make me feel sick to my stomach to watch him bleeding out of. I was like, because I would not draw back if I didn't think I could hit what I was going to shoot at. Right?
Yeah,
I'm not interested in trying to wound anything. And to hear that it was like whack. I mean, I could tell it hit him.
Yeah.
And then see a little bit of blood coming off of his high up on his butt. It actually, I was pissed at myself. Like, God damn it. Like, I'm not because, the shot, I came back the next day and I'm like, hold on, let me just double check to make sure my bow is fine and stuff too.
Yeah. I'm to the point now where I don't really want to have a shoot off against you. You're one of these, you're going to Luke Skywalker my ass one of these days. You're going to come back a Jedi, and
I don't know about that, but I was like pissed, right? Because I wanted to double check to make sure that, and I was like, okay, and it just
you drop 2 side by side.
Yeah, and it made me feel sick to my stomach that it's because I had a good pullback, it was a good release. It's like, what the hell happened? What did I do was wrong?
Actually, we did have a shoot off the first day.
Yeah, you beat me. But we did put a nice. Our
group. Remember our first? Was it at 100? What was
that first one? Was at 60?
Oh yeah, we literally got out of the truck, put our stuff on the tailgate, and just said, "All right, let's shoot from right here because there's a target here at camp." And
62 yards.
It was 62. We both set our sights. First 2 shots, you just smoked the bullseye at 1 o'clock. I shoot, literally my veins like touching your vein. So then the next one, I shot first and went 5 o'clock on the dot, and then all of a sudden you shot touching mine. Then we shot one more time, but yeah, we shot 3 arrows, and each one of our arrows literally is like follow the leader.
Yeah.
And different spots on the dot. And then we went back to 100, and same thing. I mean, just reined them in there.
Yeah.
And when you have confidence like that, and we're not taking those kinds of shots out here, but like you said, I learned this a long time ago. A really, kind of a famous bow hunter made a comment one time on a TV show that always kind of stuck with me. He said, your effective bow hunting range is probably about half of your practice distance, your effective practice distance.
Yeah.
So that's why I spend, the reality is, especially if you're a Western hunter, 50, 60-yard shots are probably common. Your ability to make those shots dramatically changes success rate. So that's why I do a lot of practicing at longer distances, just because I feel like the close stuff is just chip shot. I mean, it just seems.
If you can bomb it in at 100 and you get a 20-yard opportunity, like that's not,
Yeah, you kind of think, is something wrong here? I mean, why is the target so
even
big?
today, this morning, right? It was 34 yards is where I had that, which is my bottom pin. Like very comfortable. Like I'm not worried about that because we can go and practice at distance. I got in trouble at our homeowners association. Apparently, you're not supposed to do this in front of your house, shooting into potentially your neighbor's property. I don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, that's a gray area.
I don't think I would ever. I don't know if I would ever take a shot at that distance, but I'm absolutely going to push the practice distance out further and further and further.
Yep.
To make it seem like a chip shot at 60.
Yeah.
Because we had those awesome arrows at 62. That was the exact distance I shot at that bull.
Yeah, that is, yeah. And
surprisingly, I mean, it literally was like 62.1.
Yep.
I mean, that's why when I came back, I'm like, okay, I have to make sure that I didn't kick my bow or something like that.
No, I mean, if an animal that big is dropping, it's a lot of gravity. They can move fast.
Yeah,
and I mean, they move fast, but like what Rogan was talking about when we hunted
the axis?
Yeah, the axis. They're almost more like an antelope type twitch. So their ability to dodge and duck and spin is even higher. It's dramatic, the speed difference. So I mean, in those cases, you just you have to be. You're trying to be people that think that if you're just as accurate as a pie plate because that's the size of the kill zone. The problem is the kill zone isn't always stationary.
Or facing you broadside.
Right. So being able to hit the dead center dot of that paper plate, the paper plate is your kill radius.
Yep.
So if that kill radius can move right, left, up, or down half of the distance of that radius, because you're hitting in the dead center of that, your success rate goes way higher. Because then you have the ability for that animal to react and move or turn. And if you're always actually on target for the dead center, then you have you've got some variance, you've got a little forgiveness.
Yeah.
But if you're just happy slopping them all around the rim of a paper plate, well, now you're rolling dice, and that's not the thing to do.
Especially when you see a multi-100-pound animal coming at you and yeah, the pin is like, wow, my pin is a little less stable than it usually is when there's no consequences associated with the shot.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember the first time I saw a mule deer, because these animals up here, there's so much grain. Grain is the main, kind of crop, and really the oil and grain is a big commodity up here, right? So the first time I shot a mule deer, because you're looking at them in these 2-mile squares and they're sitting in the middle of it, you don't really realize until you walk up to them, good grief, that thing is big.
When I broke through what was that stuff? Canola?
Yeah.
Which, go for a walk on that, people, if you want to work out. Get a 100-yard stretch of canola and sprint it for time. If you
No way.
Pick your knees up. It's all that's the advice I want to give you. That thing was massive.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen a muley, but they play hide and seek like my kids do. They go into this canola and they sit down and their horns stick up in the air. It's like my kids hiding behind a curtain. It's like, I see your shoes. What are you doing? I know where you are.
Yeah, if they feel like if they can, as long as they've got the wind at their back and they're facing the same direction the wind's blowing, as long as their eyeballs are covered, they feel like they don't realize there's like another 2.5 feet that go above their forehead.
Nobody can see me. But to get in there, so like, to go back to that muley, like, we were across, and your bull decoy or your cow decoy for the moose. I might have to post a picture of it. I have a hard time taking you serious when you wear that thing, but the thing obviously works like a champ, because you were like nodding your head the other day, and you got the cow to eat yesterday. You're definitely the elk whisperer. But I'm looking in the field, across the field. At first, I thought it was Taylor wearing it, and then I saw your bow in your hand. I'm like, oh, that's John with that on. But he was. I mean, you took your boots off, took your camo pants off, and just had the hex bottoms on. And how fast do you think you were moving as you were making your way towards that thing?
Well, it was almost like yoga pace. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
Like literally you're almost holding a pose as you're, bringing one foot up as high as you can so that you can kind of wiggle it down into the canola without making
knife blading everything over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then, like
you want to
that
talk
muley,
about patience.
Yeah, because I got, 15 yards from that buck?
I think so, when it finally stood up, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the other thing too is I pulled back on him a few times because I seen his head moving, and I was anticipating him to stand up, just because a lot of times they stand up if the sun's been on them too long or something like that. But in this case, the farmer that was in the full field over came in with his swather to cut the canola down in the neighboring field.
Think razor blade that's about 100 feet long.
Yeah.
Rolling razor blades.
Yeah. So I could tell that the buck was probably going to stand up to see what was going on. And that was perfect for me, because I was able to see the buck's head turn and look towards that swather. And I'm like, okay, he can hear it. I know he's thinking about it. And as the thing was coming closer and closer and closer, I could see his head moving around. I thought, okay, now's my chance. I pulled back, and then sure enough, up comes his butt.
Which you said that always happens first, right, with the muleys? Butt up
Yeah, because
first?
the way they bed, they kind of have to spring up with their back feet so that they can come up onto the front feet, just the way that they work. So yeah, that was a textbook, and that shot, he was done in 5 seconds.
I mean, I had a great view. I mean, he bounded maybe 4 times, but he went over that hill, right? So you probably couldn't see how far he went.
Yeah.
He was up, a little bit up, and just didn't come back up. And in the straight line. I mean, he literally continued in that straight line between you and I. It was unbelievable. Why'd you decide to do the stalk that day as opposed to the other two?
Because once I knew that day the wind was calm, remember, which is what made the stalking much harder.
It was, yeah. It was gusting the previous days.
Yeah, and that's one thing, I guess, for bow hunters listening, because I'm sure some of my knock-on friends will be listening. But in my backpack, I always carry, I've got a set of volleyball knee pads, which I think you saw.
I did, yeah.
I unloaded my pack into your pack yesterday to pack your bear out. But I've got volleyball knee pads, and then I've got, I always carry an extra pair of really thick socks, and I carry knee-high ones. So in that case, even though my UA pants this is a quiet material, but there's a difference between how hide sounds going through brush or grain or canola versus, hair or skin. So that's why I literally went down into, my hex suit is like an underlayer that I wear that I really swear behind. And it's slick. It's almost like kind of more of like long johns. It's not like because
it absorbs
hunting fabric is tech fabric.
It
right?
absorbs. I think it absorbs. Like if something were to swing back at you, it absorbs not only the contact but the noise as well.
It's like hitting your leg versus hitting a pant or something that flattens or whatever. But yeah, so I just pulled out the extra pair of socks, took my boots off, pulled those extra socks over the socks that I had, just so that I would have a little bit extra cushioning, because those leaves were really dry that fall off the canola.
And everything up here has thorns.
Yeah, and then just slipped in, shot him in my undies, I guess. So
Yeah, when I came around the corner, and I don't know how to describe this. You're like 7 feet tall, with your moose head or your elk head on, with a huge smile and a camo top, and your underwear. It's like, with just a huge smile, having the time of your life, man. That was awesome to be able to watch that. And again, talk about patience. I mean, I think it's hard to describe unless you've tried to really move that slow and sneak up on something. I mean, I remember, like, I think we talked about this in the last podcast, just sniper school and the stocks there. You're looking like that far in front of your, like, you're looking where you want to go and getting a path, and then it's like, okay, how do I move in the next inch and not make a noise that's going to give me away?
yep.
Exhausting for sure.
Which is probably the most sneaky way to do it. But as you've learned, the longer you're in one position, the more opportunity you have for like wind switch or wind change. So once you're within 50, well, I mean, most animals, their sense of smell is well over 100 yards for sure. But when you're within 50, any change in the wind or swirl in the wind because of the ridge or because you're in an indention or anything like that, and you're busted, because that's everything's first sense is just they're relying on smell. They smell you, they're gone. And, and that's why I've never been a big advocate of like scent, like, I don't know.
Hiders, blockers, fill in the blank.
Yeah, because, it's impossible to do it when you have to have a thermocell, or you're taking your cell phone, take your cell phone out, or, you're taking your bow, and your bow, you can't fully contain
And
all
plus,
that
if you
smell.
start sweating, doesn't it counteract that? Then it
Yeah,
wouldn't-
and there's certain fabrics that definitely help control that are like microbial. But the reality is scent free is, I think that's an absolute, and I'm not big on saying absolutes.
Yeah.
So the closer you get to them, it's only a matter of time before they're going to start sensing that. So you almost have to, once you get within that window, unless you have a very, very strong wind in your face where it's blowing enough to block movement and sound, then you almost need to pick your time to strike, and you either go inside of that red zone, or you get to the perimeter of what your red zone is and think, okay, can I make this happen right now?
Yeah.
Or am I rolling the dice to try to make it happen right now? And just being where the buck was, he was in a very favorable position for me, because there was water behind him. There was water behind that field, which was kind of the only water for the area. I figured if I was patient enough and waited for a hot day, I could probably see him moving towards that water, and there was a really good contour in the land.
Yeah, you had some great
channelized
area.
Yeah, so I just said, listen, I would rather him stay in an area that's favorable to me, and then...
As opposed to pushing it and bumping them out.
Yep.
You know what surprised me this morning? Again, like one of the many things that I've learned. When I was thinking about coming up here, I guess I was thinking that it would be ultra sneaky the whole time, right? Because you have to get so close, in air quotes, in comparison to, ballistic or rifle hunting. But like today, as we had an awesome hunt this morning. We were going after elk, but the bear presented itself. So I took a shot on the bear, had a little bit more time. So we figured we would go try to get that elk, and we literally encountered some on a road.
Yep.
It took off running, bombed off into the trees, I went across the road, came into the trees to an area that you knew. So we hauled into there, even on the walking portion. And I think I tripped and fell over one time. I was like, we were making some noise for sure. We didn't have our ninja boots on.
Yeah.
But then we got into that field, and that animal that almost came around the corner was right behind us the whole time. So I was amazed.
Well, we were called. That's why I called as soon as we got out.
Yeah.
As soon as we entered the bush, because I knew we were going to be more at a game speed. It wasn't stealth speed. This was game speed. I was calling as I was going, almost like I was a lost elk. Like, I'm lost. Someone, I'm coming in. I'm coming in hot.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, that when it launched off behind us, like, you've got to be kidding me.
That was a bull. That came. It was coming to that call, and we were looking at, like, it thought we were coming to it, and it was coming to us.
Yeah.
And yeah, if there wasn't those willows right there, I'm pretty sure that bull would have stepped out at 3 yards. I mean,
It was close.
Yeah.
If it had taken one more step, I was going to draw back and just wait
Yeah.
until my arm gave out. But, I was like, there's no way that that's going to happen, because in my mind, I'm like, we were really loud coming in there because we were chasing the other bull.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shocker for me, for sure.
That's the one benefit to elk. Elk are big. They're big, heavy animals. Same with moose. So I think last time I talked about in the podcast, there's a difference. They accept normal noise like sticks breaking or leaves, especially
but not a couple times.
Especially when they're communicating with one another and they know they're like going together, because they're trying to choose the shortest path to meet one another, and they're not going to venture way off to find a game trail that they can walk quiet on, or you know what I mean. So they know that they're going to make some of that noise, and they accept it. And the bigger the animal, the more accepting they are to natural noise, like sticks or clunking a hoof on a thing. But tinging and can.
Oh, you're done, right?
Yeah, anything that's non-nature related, that'll be the end of that.
So don't drop your Yeti.
No.
Doink.
Yeah, never drop your Yeti out hunting, which I've done. I dropped one down a tree stand one time. I took one with me, and I was drinking my coffee, and how have you ever had just where you do a total fumble with something that's just really stupid? Like, why can't
Only on days that end in Y, man. Almost every day I'm like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I went fumbleitis and dropped my Yeti. It was like a November day, super cold, dead quiet, and I swear I could
Went
hear
out for miles.
Yeah, where I hunt's 20 miles from my house. I swear Sharon could have texted me and said, "Did you drop your Yeti cup?"
That Yeti saved us this week, though. We were loading that sucker up with some cafe latte.
Hey,
I made a rookie mistake the first day. I'm going to admit to it.
That was.
We're taking a break, and John's like, "Hey, man, pull out that jet boil. Let's have some coffee." I was like, "Yeah, about that. You didn't tell me I should bring it. I have a jet boil and I have coffee. It's back at the ranch."
I was very upset with you because you're like, "Dude, I brought my jet boil and my
French
Black
press.
Rifle coffee."
Oh,
And
hell yeah.
I said, "Dude, that's gonna be so perfect." Because normally, if anything, I had taken hot water and just
The Vias.
Yeah, some Vias. But man, I'm going to tell everyone 2 things I learned from you this week.
Don't trip over sticks.
No, I learned 3 things. One is you changed you got me geeked out about a new coffee, because I like coffee and wine are 2 of my things, and that AK-47 is the bomb diggity.
Yep. Don't venture too far from home, though, if you take a solid cup of AK-47.
I did. Yeah. I drywalled some poplar trees. Yeah, it kicks in. It comes in hot. There's no question. But no, the second day, we busted out that jet boil down in that creek about noon.
Such an awesome
Ground
cool
up
wind.
Ground up some AK, and then just had some cups of really good coffee in the middle of the day. That's like all you need, man. That's perfect. And then 3 days in, the second thing I learned from you is never let you open the bag of coffee because when I went to we're having some silencer right now, and you said, "Yeah, it's in the bag." Dude, you open coffee like a 3-year-old opens a box of cereal.
Well, did you notice there's an arrow hole in that bag?
What was that, a broadhead?
Yeah. That's why it's in that bag, because I shot it.
That's awesome. Oh, is that the one that you shot for social media?
Yes. That's why it's in the gallon
Okay.
Ziploc bag.
I'm like, man, I could open Lucky Charms better than this when I was 2. The next thing was I'm addicted now to these Kill Cliffs, man.
They're tasty.
I mean, they're not a sponsor of mine, so I can say it because I was pretty shocked. We did.
Yesterday?
Yeah, because we started out not thinking how far we were going to venture, and then I just kept saying, "Let's just go one more. Let's go one more," and then we were parched.
Well,
and you're like, "Have you had any Kill Cliffs?" And I'm like, "No, I never have."
Oh, that was the day before yesterday.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then now, this is an awesome, because I'm pretty health conscious, and I'm not a Red Bull guy. And like you said, I think the sucky part about that is the size of the can is what's deceiving. Like
Everybody's first reaction is, it's an energy drink, where it's the
another
exact
Red
opposite.
Bull
Yeah.
or something. But no, this is great. You read the label. It's awesome, and it's literally like a refreshing hydration, rehydration, and you drink Gatorade, you might as well just drink Kool-Aid with
Yep.
a little salt in there, right? So that I don't ever drink that. This is going to be a staple of mine. I tell people all the time, I pack pretty minimal. You saw that. I like to be able to run and gun.
Well, you got to be. I mean, if you load yourself down, you're going to be. You like take everything you think you're going to need. You're done by the middle of the day.
Yeah.
You got to be able to sacrifice or take a chance. Like maybe I'm not going to need this and be able to go all day long. I would rather take that risk myself.
Yeah, this is going to be one of my staples. A Yeti with coffee. Now it's going to be Black Rifle coffee for sure. I like that. AK-47 is going to be my staple. 3 Alpha Brains for the 3 bottles of water that I normally bring.
Yep.
My TPC packs, and honestly, one of these for like end of the day to just try to put some stuff back in there.
Or like when we got to the truck yesterday,
Dude,
and you're like, I don't know if I should sit down.
I knew if I laid down, I might not get back up, because that's a really valid point too. I said that after the first day. I'm like, all these people that talk about what they need to do to get in shape for hunting, there's a big difference between having endurance and then having the ability to pick your legs up, set them down, pick them up, trudge through canola. That's resistance against you.
And the resistance is all in that high knee drive. It's all blocking you from, if you don't train and get your knees above your hips in some, squatting depth or the bike. I agree with you that the bike, I think, replicates that well. Your hip flexors will be destroyed. Not probably the first day. You'll probably get done with the first day and you're going to be tired, but you're going to wake up the second day, roll out of bed, and fall down like a sniper shot to the chest. You're going to be done.
Well, was today your 4th?
5th day.
Okay. Well, have you ever listened to what I talked about on my podcast when I said how camp normally goes for people, how they kind of party? People come in,
everybody gets
they
after it
practice,
early.
They get after it.
Yeah.
And the second day, people are hunting hard. By the third day,
People are sleeping
people
in.
are coming in for lunch. Yeah. And then this is normally the day right now where people actually, because this morning when I got up, I thought, if I didn't really care about what I'm doing this much, I would totally just say I'm going to go at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because I felt like dog shit. I mean,
And we got in late, and we
dude,
had
I
a
felt
hard.
beat.
We got to talk.
My shins look like I've been doing deadlifts in a CrossFit place for about a month straight from how many.
With a barbell with barbs on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta talk about Jordan for a second. I mean, let's start here. It's 2017, okay? There's some amazing technology out there when it comes to equipment. And believe me, I'm a fan of a Renaissance man or like a throwback dude who wants to just take it back. But so Jordan, he came out here to be my guide. Had never met him before. Totally awesome guy, right?
Yep.
Knowledgeable. Couldn't have been a greater help. I'll stay in contact with the guy forever. We already swapped information. Like, it's going to be awesome. And we're getting dressed to go out, the first day. And you hooked me up with a ton of UA stuff. So you and I are, UA billboard basically.
Yeah.
And Jordan's having breakfast and he's wearing black and red checkered flannel pants. Pajama pants. And a T-shirt. And
I think that he got from football camp in high school.
yeah,
maybe.
totally. JV called. They want their T-shirt back. And we get ready to go, and my man whips out a camouflage onesie. And I mean like a baby onesie, but for an adult, it's like a Teletubby thing, basically. And he straps that thing
Solid
on.
fleece. Like, I don't even know how to say the thickness level of it.
Yeah, it would probably stop at 22 round at 100 yards. Throws it on with rubber galoshes, and that's what he wore for the last 4 days. So yesterday, we're sitting in the truck. I mean, I'm wiped because we did not bring enough H2O for sure. So we were calling to have people meet us, and we're like, listen, here's your priorities. Water, and some more PB&Js. So you and I are sitting in the shade. We were enjoying a tasty Kill Cliff and just draining as many waters as possible. And I look over, and my man's got shirt off. Teletubby onesie is like down around his waist. He takes off his fucking galoshes It turns him upside down, and sweat pours out of him. And he could just tell, like, he's just completely smoked. And I'm like, I'm smoked. You know, that classic example, like, God damn, I put in a hard day's work today. And you look over, like, I am such a bitch. That guy has been walking around. I mean, his internal, I can't believe he didn't die of heat stroke. I mean, we were going through places that was not windy. The sun is beating down. Jordan actually made the comment. He's like, John, you're the only one that's not sweating. Andy's sweating pretty good. I'm dying.
I was like, yeah, I mean, but I did. Oh God, I'm hurting. I can't think straight. Right
Well, what
now.
killed me
That's
is
hilarious.
I didn't realize. I don't think you realized either. I was like, John, turn around and look and see what he has underneath that. And as he was pulling it off, it was his goddamn pajama pants.
Do you realize we actually took his last water bottle? Like, now that you're saying all this, I look back and me and you just said, because he only brought 2 and he saved his last one, and we're like, Jordan, you still got that last water bottle? Because we were, what, 2 miles from the truck?
Probably.
And he goes, yeah. And you're like, break that bitch out right now. We freaking toasted that water bottle like a freaking Capri Sun.
Yeah.
Meanwhile-
that water bottle flexed in on itself. It was getting drained so fast.
Looking back, we could have dropped my survival straw in those boots.
Oh, my God.
If we really had to
They're
go hard.
knee-high waders with candle wicks of pajama bottoms stuffed in them. And so today, like, oh, my God, you hooked him up. He's just walking around. He's like, oh, I feel so good.
I said, dude, you need me to size those pants up so you can get those PJs underneath? And he was like, he kind of thought about it. He's like, wait a minute.
But you know what? He never said a goddamn word. You know what I mean? He
No.
was just out there every mile with us. I would say in the 4.5 days that you and I hunted together, we probably put in between 35 to 40 miles.
Has to be more than that, I would think.
Estimating
Because we
on the
did
low
13.
end. Yeah, yesterday.
The day, no, that
was yesterday.
And the day before we did 11?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 24 right there.
So plus or minus. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely it's.
Yeah.
But he never said a
probably.
word.
Yeah.
You know, my man just We made
But
him
that's what you have to do, though. If you want to be successful, you got to leave the truck. I mean, with this kind of hunting, the reason why people think that you have a horseshoe up your butt. I mean, at least my social media people are like, holy cow, how does he see this much stuff?
I did read some of those comments. Yeah.
I mean,
Hope you enjoy it, fucker. Oh, I wish I could come. Like,
get your flannels on and come.
you can come, but you have to wear flannels and rubber waders.
Gosh, if UA ever sends his Christmas gifts like a big Ridge Reaper blanket, I'm just gonna take mine to my grandma and have her whip one of those suckers up for Jordan.
I just love the fact he's so hey, we're just gonna keep going and we'll be out until dark.
That's how Canadians are, man.
he was like, yeah, let's
they
go.
get after it.
Like yesterday, he had 2 water bottles. He sweat out 20 water bottles worth. I don't know where the sweat was coming
I know.
from. Sawdust should have been coming out.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh man, what an epic 4.5 days, man! I can't wait to come back up here next year for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's already on the books
We're gonna have adventures before that.
for sure.
There's no question about it. This was epic, man.
I mean, a great intro. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better 4.5 days of. Okay, I've been shooting this in my backyard. Like, is that all there is to this? And then you get out here and you're like, damn.
Yeah, and you had to learn the difficult decisions as a hunter. You come back, you're like, okay, Chris is like, you want sausage links? You want them steaks? Like now you're having to figure out
The tough
okay,
ones.
How thick are your steaks? You want 1/2 inch? You want 3/4? Like you're going through that. And then meanwhile, Taylor's coming up. He's like, what do you want to do with the hide? You want the skull boiled out? You want a European on the skull? You want a rug? What do you want to do? So I mean, you're sitting there looking around like,
Yeah, I just want to be able. I want to do something with all of it because, I mean, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. Those experiences, and I want to be able to look at it and relive it.
And you're going to change. You'll literally reshape your kids' look on so many things that are big problems in the U.S. right now, especially with people's misunderstanding of the importance of hunting.
Yeah,
The fact that I assume those breakfast sausages or bratwurst or whatever he just made
Lights
were
out.
ridiculous. And I'm sure you're going to go home, throw those on your Traeger, and
Oh, yeah.
give those to the kids. So the next time someone's like, why would you shoot a bear? I mean, they're going to be like, it could be one of their favorite things to eat. Like Harry would have wore those out with some pancakes if he was a kid and you just said, here's your thing.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
I can understand people saying that because I'm sure there are areas where you shouldn't shoot a bear because they need them for population control, But in an area like this where we couldn't go anywhere without encountering one, and I can only imagine the farmers don't appreciate the damage that they do to their crops.
Yep.
And
well, they definitely don't.
And I don't know if they have any natural predators other than larger bears because they obviously eat themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in that environment, like if you don't understand, if you understand the context, there's absolutely no argument against it. It's not like we're out there. Oh yeah, I'm not like, I'm a trophy. I shot a bear. Like, absolutely not. Like, I'm gonna eat the hell out of that thing.
You never said, "Is that a big one?" Like, you never said, "Is that big enough?" Even today, that bull that we saw, you were like, "Is it a legal bull to take?" It had one half of its rack was completely broken off from fighting, and you're like, "Is it legal?" And the other side had 4 points on it, so we're like, and you're just game on.
I just want to fill up our freezers so we can eat ethically sourced food that I brought myself.
Yeah,
I mean that's all I care about. The arguments against hunting, I guess for me, I mean, obviously given my background, I grew up around guns, and shooting guns and being outside. So it's a no-brainer to me. I think a lot of it comes from people experiencing the world through an electronic device as opposed to with their own eyes out in the world. Because in that, every picture you see on Instagram of a cuddly-looking bear, which would eat your face if it was encountering you,
probably.
It's going to give you a skewed perspective. And then, of course, the internet is a consequence-free environment where assholes voice their opinion. So I get it, but, I mean, educate yourself.
Well, that's the thing. Like most of Sharon, all of Sharon's family are from England. Sharon was from England, right? So hunting wasn't allowed. Like, bow hunting wasn't, it's not even legal over there.
They do a little bit. They like
bow hunting.
Bird hunting.
Yeah, they
stuff,
do
right?
bird hunting.
Yeah.
Correct. But for the most part, hunting is not something that's favored by any means. But she came over and at least had an open mind of, well, why is this needed? And then she started to realize how much, we couldn't grow a garden. There's deer everywhere. Our neighbors were all hitting deer with cars. And you just start to realize, she's like, this is a necessity.
Yeah.
And then, I wouldn't, if there was a couple elk that lived in Iowa, I would be the first one to say, we shouldn't be hunting these.
Yeah.
Like, there's not enough here to hunt. Let them grow and flourish and get to the point where
you're helping the herd out.
The habitat is not supporting the size of, the animal's, population. And at that point, but up until that point, I would be spending dollars to try to make sure that those animals were taken care of, which is what we do with so many different programs. And the problem is people aren't educated to see that. They don't realize that the reason these populations are where they are is because, of the hunters supporting financially so much of what goes on, the DNR, the conservation. All these things are just critical to really to the whole world, not just to the hunting community.
And it's not cheap. Like I had to buy or put in for the draw for a non-resident elk tag in Montana. Mm-hmm. We got a deer and an elk tag. It was $1,000.
Yep.
And 4 members of my family, myself and 3 others, all put in for it. So I mean that money goes to the conservation. And the odds of all 4 of us harvesting one of those animal, microscopic. It'll be better after I give them the tips, right? Hunt with the wind at your back, go to the low ground, make
Stand
noise.
in the field.
Make noise.
Do you have a onesie? Yes. Flannel underpants.
I can't give them. I've never seen anything like that in my life. But yeah, it's people love to talk about things they have no actual physical experience doing. It's very frustrating for me.
Well, brother, you got to hit the road. Your kids start school tomorrow. I want to make sure you're there. Man, it has been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
you,
for
man.
being here.
Thanks for the invite.
All right.
Until the next podcast.
T-shirts.
Oh, T-shirts. We're wearing them.
Yep.
I'm going to ship them tomorrow, people.
I was the first one to get one.
You were.
I was the first one to say I'm getting that sucker.
I love that picture with the double bells, too. It's good to go.
Yeah. Well,
they're coming out another round. Maybe another design. It's hard to say what's going to happen. Maybe limited quantities.
Yep. Get them while they're hot. Once they're cleared hot.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man.
Don't let it cool off.
That's it, everybody. Episode number 11. Like Dudley actually brought up at the end of the podcast, T-shirts. I don't know who's buying them, but whoever is, thank you very much. These things are flying off of the shelf, even though I actually don't keep them on a shelf. I guess they're flying out of the cardboard box. But there's a second order coming in, and there is a new design coming in, and maybe or maybe not, we're working on that hat design. So that'll be here shortly as well, too. Biggest thing, though, is thank you for the support. Buy a shirt or don't. I don't really care. What I do really care about and what I really appreciate and what's awesome is that I get hit up almost every single day by somebody over email or just clicks the contact button and hits me up and lets me know, that they got something positive from the podcast or it affected their life in a positive way. And it's really cool to hear, stuff that I consider to be, I don't know, I guess sometimes it's random thoughts or it's my attempt to try to make sense of my own experiences, helping other people. So that's exactly why I started the podcast. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's listening. And